All right. Hello, everybody. We are doing our call today with Pam Huber. She is a graphic designer, and she is going to talk with us a little bit about logos and her visual identity branding. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Pam, and she's got some slides with us to share. So enjoy.
Okay, hi. I am Pam Huber. I've been doing graphic design professionally for 13 years. I started kind of at a small ad agency in Southern California, and I was there for 6 years doing copywriting and just kind of basic junior design work, and I worked my way up. And then by the time I had my first son, I decided just to kind of go for it and do things on my own. And I've opened Pam Huber Designs 7 years ago now. And I have clients now kind of sprinkled everywhere, Florida, Texas, a handful in Kentucky, and then a lot up and down the West Coast. And I'm actually up in the Pacific Northwest now, just a little bit north of Portland. So the bulk of what I do, I would say, is publication design. I do magazines, brochures, multi-page layout kind of design. And then the other big thing I normally do is logo design and just kind of basic visual identity branding and rolling that out for companies so that they have all of their stuff looking the same and like them. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Just kind of talk about why visual identity branding is important and basically why you should care about it and how you can tackle a lot of it on your own until you're ready to outsource it to a professional. So here we go, visual identity branding. It tells the world who you are without you having to say a word. It lets you stand out, especially in crowded fields. A lot of us do similar things, obviously, with work and jobs. And so you want to stand out and not just kind of blend in with everybody else. And a good way is to have a look that is yours and yours alone. You want something that's going to kind of evoke recognition and have somebody see a brochure that you've done or a flyer or a business card or whatever and look at that, and just by looking at it say, oh, that's I met that person, or I remember them, or whatever. Even if they can't remember you necessarily, they remember that you had a pineapple in your logo or whatever. So is it easy to do all this? No, not necessarily. It's a lot of work, but some of it can be fairly simple and doable for pretty much everybody. It takes a lot of planning and commitment basically at the beginning, and then after that it just takes consistency. You got to do it the same way every time, over and over and over. Because without the consistency, you don't have that look that I was talking about. There's no visual cues to associate with you. But if you don't have a logo, or you don't feel like you can afford one, or whatever it is your reason is, you can kind of fake it to begin with. I would say, pick a font, pick a color if you want one, and then use that kind of as a type-based temporary logo. But you want to use it every single time. I'm sure you've seen flyers or postcards or whatever that are by the same person, but they've, in one everything is one font and one color, and the other one's another total font, and there's nothing that looks the same about them, and so you would have no way of knowing that they're the same company, and that's just confusing. It's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. If you're going to do it right. It says you don't really have the desire to take the time to be consistent and look professional, and you got to ask yourself why clients would want to, spend their time and money with somebody who's not taking what they do seriously and professionally. So where do you start? You kind of need to know who you are. What is your brand? What are you selling? whether it's a product or a service. Who are you trying to sell it to? Who is your target market? And what feeling do you want your visual message to say? But the best way to start with that, I would say, is with a logo. And like I said, even if this is something that you're just DIYing for now, that's okay. If you start with a solid logo, it's going to give you that foundation to roll it out. And basically, it's a good starting point because it gives you kind of a feel for the colors and just the overall feeling. If it's, you know, I'm blanking on good examples here. Elegant or sophisticated or feminine or strong. You know, there's a lot of feelings that you can convey just by the look of a logo. So what is a logo? What exactly is it? It's going to be a visual mark of your brand or company. It's going to contain usually your name in a specific font or typographically designed here. It usually has some sort of an icon attached to it that can be used separately when needed. But usually it's something that works together as one cohesive piece. Let's see. When it comes to a logo, my biggest recommendation is just to keep it simple. You don't want it overly complicated. You want something that you can reproduce easily in just one color, because you will need to do that once in a while. You just don't want to overdo it with shouting at people and that sort of thing. Too many colors and fonts is kind of overwhelming. It's generally unnecessary. It gets really expensive when you go to print things. Keep in mind that down the road, a lot of times if you're going to print something like a table skirt or something for conference materials, generally in particular, they're going to charge you per color. And so if you've got a logo with, 8 colors in it, you're paying a setup fee for each one of those colors. So, if you're a big corporation and you're just willing to spend money on that sort of thing, it's fine, but it's something to think about at the beginning. Let's see. I recommend keeping it classic. I know that there's a lot of trendy fonts out there, especially like handwritten, kind of the real scripty fonts. When you have those, they're fun for a lot of things, for graphics and everything. For logos, I tend to shy away from them. They can be really hard to read, and you don't want anybody to look at your logo and, what does that say? You want it to be legible, easy to read, and you don't want it to be a font that everybody else is using. That's not going to help you stand out. And also, if it's too trendy, it's going to look dated far more quickly than you want it to. You want to be able to have your logo for a long time without changing it up too much. And last, this one, you want to keep it on message. What do those fonts and colors that you've chosen say about you? Are they going to attract your target market? You want to think about something, if you are a pediatrician, say, or even, a pediatric dentist, you can get away with having a real colorful, kind of childlike font, just kind of a fun vibe going on. But if you're going to open, a cardiac facility or some sort of neurosurgery, you're not going to want that. You're going to want very classic, very serious, very, I know what I'm doing and no nonsense kind of thing. So just think about that and what message you're saying by the choices that you make in the logo. How do you choose a designer? There are a lot of us out there. So you want to make sure that you pick somebody that's willing to get to know you and your brand and what you really actually need. I'm going to throw a little disclaimer out here right now that, not a disclaimer so much as just kind of a complaint / please think about this. Fiverr and 99designs.com, there's a lot of websites out there right now that let you kind of throw out what you need and what you're willing to pay, and then designers compete for it. Keep in mind that means that there's a lot of designers out there working for free. The only person that's getting paid is the person's logo who you chose. It really devalues design in general, and it kind of ensures that you're not getting something that anybody cares that much about. They're just trying to win the contest. Logo design is really hard, and it's really time consuming, and just remember, you generally get what you pay for. So that's my, you know. So anyway, who you do want to pick, you want to go with somebody with a style that you like. Go to their website, look at their portfolio. You can get a good sense of somebody's style. And if what you think you want looks nothing like what the work they usually do is, it's probably not going to be a good fit. Pick somebody whose style you mesh with, and you'd be happy with something that you see on their site already. You want to get somebody that understands file types, the usages, and make sure that they're going to provide those files to you. You need very different files for websites than you would need for any sort of print work. For example, here you need a vector file specifically. That's going to be I would say that's probably the number one thing that you need. You want to make sure that the logo is designed in vector. And what I mean by that is, so this file on the left is a vector file. And what that means, it means that it's an image based on layers of like mathematical equations almost. I'm not going to go into all of the details there because it's pretty boring and over my head. But it ensures that no matter how big your logo gets or how small, you're not going to lose any image quality whatsoever. If you have a file that's a raster image, that's going to be like a JPEG or a PNG file or something that's meant for web. Over time, not only is it going to lose quality, but it's going to start getting real pixelated like in here. So the bigger you get, the more pixels that you get. And you don't want that. You want a logo that you don't have to worry about losing quality on. You want to be able to, you might need signage one day. You might need a billboard. You don't know how big you're going to need your logo at some point. So you want to have that ahead of time, because otherwise somebody's going to have to recreate it down the road and you're going to have to pay for that. So you might as well get what you need from the beginning. Let's see, some other helpful files that you're going to need for your logo. You're going to need probably the icon alone if you have one. Like an example for this is a brand board that I create for my clients. It's kind of just a cheat sheet that has all the color call outs that they're going to need for print or for web. It's got the typography used, some recommendations. Anyway, this is the icon down here that she can use alone. You're going to want a one color black because you will need your logo to print in one color now and then. A reversed one is helpful, and that's just all white again that you can use on a dark background and have it show up perfectly. And then depending on your logo design, you might need a secondary logo. And what that is, this example, it was kind of a longer one, and we also did a stacked version so that she can use it in more square spaces. Another good example of this one was this kind of square one that we created, and then when she went to go make her website, she realized that the template she chose had a really long horizontal header here, and so we made a secondary logo, which you can see it's the same company, it's the same logo, it's just a different usage. If you're going to have a secondary version, which is generally helpful, keep it at that and cut it. You don't want to start just making all kinds of different, versions of your logo that don't make sense. Just stick with the two and you should be safe. Let's see. So that's kind of my logo overview there. And sorry, I know this is a lot of information in kind of a short amount of time. So feel free to email me with questions or anything at the end, or I'm always happy to answer questions. But here we go. This is a good question for most everybody starting out. How much can I do myself? How much can I get away with not having to hire a designer for? There's a lot of options if you have the time and patience to DIY things. You just need to know your limitations. Do you have a good computer? Do you have the time? I mean, this stuff is time consuming, especially to get it right. You're going to need a lot of things that you might not think of yet, and you might not need them yet, but you will down the road. You know, business cards and flyers and postcards, maybe a banner, brochures, social media posts, definitely. You're going to need more than that you think you do, probably. Some things you're probably going to want to outsource, like signage and brochures, but some of it you can handle. Let's see. Oops. Yeah. How much time? And there's online design platforms to help. A lot of you've probably heard of Canva. That's kind of one of the most popular ones. It's going to be really helpful as long as you've got all of your colors and fonts and everything from your logo started. You can kind of roll it out using Canva for a lot of web-based stuff, especially like social media posts and backgrounds and that sort of thing. I'm just going to point out here, beware of web-based file creation in Canva. It's going to be great for web, like I said, because it uses the same color model, but it's not necessarily going to give you the high resolution, and it does not give you the CMYK color model, which is what you have to convert it to before you send it to anything to print. So yeah, if you can afford a bigger, a publishing program, even if it's Publisher, I use all the Adobe ones, Illustrator, InDesign, but those are pricey and probably pricier than you want and a lot more effort to learn. So it's up to you what you can do and what you have time for. But once you have a place to make stuff, there's a lot of good free image and graphic resources online. These are a few here. These are some good ones: Pexels, Unsplash, Stock Snap. The thing you want to just remember mostly is you want to stay away from Google. Don't just Google, I need a picture of a banana and think that anything that you find is going to be free. It's going to be copyrighted. Probably somebody took that picture. It belongs to somebody, even if it's just somebody on Facebook. You can't just steal people's images. And also, it's probably going to be lower resolution that you want. You want to start with higher resolution, never low, especially if you end up needing to print it down the road. And these free ones, they have some really great images. They don't always have a ton of options if you're looking for something super specific. And if so, you might want to think about a pay or subscription-based site like Shutterstock or iStock. They're not super expensive. You can get a really good image for about $10. So it just depends on how many you need and how often. So same idea with fonts here. There's a lot of good stuff you can get online. You just need to keep in mind that a lot of the free ones that you find are just for personal use. You don't have a license to use them in a commercial way. So if you're going to use it on anything that you plan on ever making money from, a t-shirt or a sign or anything that you're making for somebody and you're going to sell, make sure that you own the license to that font. And also a lot of these free ones just give you demo versions because they want you to buy the commercial version. And what that means is you might start typing and realize that they didn't include the numbers in there and they didn't include symbols and that sort of thing. And so you're going to have to go and upgrade, basically. So some good free ones to start are DeFont, 1001fonts.com. You can go into Google. Google Fonts has a great selection, and most of them are, completely royalty free. You're good to use them. Some good pay ones, again, myfonts.com has a huge selection. They are rather pricey. Creativemarket.com, I find they have more of the trendy kind of look, but the prices are really good. So it's someplace to consider, and they've got great graphics and images there too. Let's see. So you've got all of this and you're ready to go for it. Here's just some super basic design tips that I'm going to throw out. And this could also obviously be a whole class on its own. So I'm just going to kind of hit the main points that I see that people often have kind of a hard time with. Don't be afraid of white space. You don't have to fill the page. You know, you need to be able to give everything a little bit of room to breathe, especially around the edges. If you're gonna have an image and there's words all the way to the side, they're gonna get cut off, whether physically or just by the eye. Keep everything in a little bit, but again, give it room to breathe. Give it some white space. You don't have to fill every single square inch. It's better if you don't. Don't overdo it on fonts. It gets really confusing to the eye. I would stick with, you know, 1 or 2, have a good headline font that's you're going to keep bigger and probably bolder. And then you're going to want like a basic copy or text font that goes with the header. Don't make them too crazy different. And then maybe one for an accent. So a script maybe, or something that's going to give a little bit of oomph and kind of visual excitement on the page. You want high quality photos. Don't use blurry ones. They look amateur. They don't look good. And don't stretch them. If they don't fit the space, don't just pull them, because that's just super obvious that you don't know what you're doing, and you don't have to. Just make it bigger if you need to, or crop it or whatever. And then, yeah, a call to action is super important here. If you're going to have anything, a brochure, a brochure or a postcard, what is it that you want people to do? That's the call to action. Do you want them to go to your website? Do you want them to sign up for this event? Make sure that whatever it is that you want them to do is very obvious. Let's see. Again, use your logo. You've got it there for a reason. Even if it's that, you know, you can get really far if you're just going to use your logo and a couple of fonts and a set color palette and use it all the time. Consistency. But you've got it. Use it and go with it. I pointed out visual hierarchy here. If that seems a little confusing, it's basically that you can't accentuate everything. Everything can't be yelling at you. What is the most important? And maybe that's the call to action. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's the event title, whatever it is, make that the most important thing and send their eye there. Like I said here, people don't read, especially if you've got a ton of stuff on a page. If something needs to be seen, highlight it. You know, and you can do that with color, with bolding. It doesn't have to be in your face. And it's better if it's not. It gets really overwhelming. I'm sure you've seen flyers that have this here and this here, and, you know, they're yelling at you. You have no idea what the point is and what's important. So just tell the people visually what's important. So let's see. I've got an example here of a company that I did a bunch of work for that, just to kind of show what I mean by consistency and, you know, and highlighting things. This is a restaurant, and see, we used the same color palette all the way across. This is the logo here, and then this is their business cards. This is some signage that they had, but again, it's all that same 3 colors that we've used. It's the same 2 fonts, and this was important. These are the headers here, so you know we've got it. You know where to look on this menu. You know where things are, and then you kind of separate it out, and that's kind of what I mean by consistency and hierarchy and all of that. Okay, so when you're preparing the files, when you've got all that done, this is all super technical stuff that I don't expect anyone to know, so I'm going to go through it real quick just so that you have an idea of what you may be in for. Most printers are going to require files to be saved correctly before they'll even touch them. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, I got this file super cheap on Etsy, and I paid $30 for all of these things, but I sent them to the printer and they said that they won't do anything with them. So how can you fix them? And I've spent hours fixing it for them, and they ended up paying over $200 for something that they thought was going to be $30. And so, like I said, again, you get what you pay for sometimes, so just beware. But again, the printers are either going to want it in vector format like we talked about, or full resolution, that's 300 dpi or dots per inch. They may require bleeds if your graphic goes all the way to the edge of the page. You're going to need a bleed, which actually puts it outside the page so that when the printer goes to cut it to size, it cuts exactly where you want it and there's no white space left behind. And crop marks are just the marks that tell them where to print, or where to cut, sorry. Let's see. Read the printer specs. Yes, you see a lot of complaints about places like Vistaprint. I don't personally use them, but it's the same for a lot of these digital printers. They're going to give you a list of exactly how they need the files, and read it. And if you don't know how to do some of the things, get some help and ask somebody, because they're going to print it exactly the way you send it. And so a lot of the times when people complain about a file, it's just user upload error or user creation error. It's not the printer's fault. So just make sure and read those printer specs and understand them to the best of your ability, and ask for help if you need it. For the web, again, you're going to want to save at that different RGB color model. You want to save at the highest resolution you can, which again is that like 300 dots per inch, and that's literal dots of color in each inch of picture. You can go down from that, but you can't. If you save it small and then you want to enlarge it, those dots are going to get big, and that's when you start seeing pixelation and things get real blurry and they get real dotty. And so save at the highest and then resize down rather than the other way around. And yeah, if you're in doubt on what kind of file type, if they give you the option between a PNG or a GIF or a TIFF or a JPEG, I think JPEG is usually the most commonly recognized, but I find it to be the hardest to work with. It actually deteriorates over time. It's what's called a lossy file type, and it literally loses information every time you open it. And so it gets just kind of muddy over time. And also, it always has that white background. So sometimes you've got like a logo or something, and you're going to put it, you get your logo in a JPEG format, and it's got a white background, and you go to put it on a blue poster or something. You're going to have that white background around. If you save it as a PNG file, it's transparent, and so you can put it basically on anything you want, and all you're going to see is your file, your logo or whatever, with none of that background. So that is it, and I'm sure you're probably overwhelmed. That's a lot of technical stuff, information, like I said. But yeah, I mean, design can be really complicated, but it can also be totally doable, as long as you kind of stick with some of the basics and take your time and be consistent. So yeah, that's kind of it. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me, pamhuberdesigns.com. I'm sorry, that's my website. pamhuberdesigns@gmail.com is my email. Or follow me on Facebook and shoot me a note, anything. I'm always happy to let you pick my brain. So that's it from me.
Thanks for being here, Pam. That was great. We'll put all of your information on the website too.
Awesome.
Thank you.